All right, Tiger folks, welcome back to another episode of Behind Frenemy Lines, where we bring on an opposition supporter to talk about the upcoming game this week. And we've obviously got the Dees tomorrow night at the MCG for ANZAC Eve, and we're lucky enough to be joined by Adrian from the DeeBrief podcast, which is massive. I know Dees fans have probably heard of you undoubtedly, but if you haven't, get around it. They're doing amazing things. So, Adrian, thanks for jumping on, mate. Appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it as well. It's great to be on, and too kind. It's not massive. But it's a good outlet, and I think it's probably similar for you, Chris. Just being able to vent and give the fans a forum is a nice thing to do. We've coined every single podcast up until last week a therapy session, and then funnily enough, we didn't have to do that this week. It was more just a joyous occasion. So, yeah, it's a roller coaster, isn't it?
Funny you say that, because that was exactly the terminology we used last year on the back of having a god-awful year. In a lot of ways, I thought viewership and interest engagement might have dropped off because we were playing shit house, but it actually went the other way because people, like you said, were able to vent because we were saying what they were thinking and feeling and everything like that. So everyone's like, when's the therapy session? So, yeah, I get where you're coming from, but it is nice to have a win. Like we were saying just before, this game maybe feels a little bit different now in light of both teams getting a win, and you guys with your first win for the year.
Yeah, definitely. I think now we could probably consider a crowd of 75, 80 plus even. I was having conversations with people last week before we both had great upset victories, and I was really worried we were going to get a crowd of 60, 65 to absolute maximum. I'd be shocked if that's the case now. The other thing that works in our favour is the weather just looks absolutely perfect tomorrow night. I think it's going to be raining on Anzac Day for the Collingwood and Essendon game. So suck shit to all those Dons and Pies fans. We'll have to cop that weather. It won't matter anyway. There's always going to be 95 there. But for us, mate, we get the pristine night on Anzac Eve. So very excited.
And it deserves that. It deserves the big turnout, doesn't it? Like, it would have been a travesty if we turn up and there's 50, 60,000. It deserves the 70, 80,000. Just a genuine marquee game.
Yeah, it is. I just what it's built into over the journey between the two clubs is very special. There's been some good battles, some good tussles. I know Richmond falling away a little bit since the 3 flags in 4 years. I would give a leg or an arm to see 3 or 4 flags in that time. But I think it's very special, and I think both clubs understand the enormity of it now and what it actually means to play in this occasion. It'll never be bigger than Collingwood and Essendon. That's a very sacred, beautiful game. I enjoy watching it. I loathe both football teams, but I park it for that day and really soak it up. But I think it's been able to place itself nicely in the echelon of, to be honest, one of the bigger fixtures on the calendar now. And I think when Melbourne and Richmond start becoming good teams again in the future, if they're contending and playing finals, like, I can definitely see this occasion being certainly one of the biggest, if not the biggest, just behind Essendon and Collingwood.
Agree. It's a really good curtain raiser to the main game itself. I think, like you said, both teams have heavily embraced it and made it their own, which is really, really good to see. So, looking forward to more fierce contests as the years go on. Although, having said that, even that it's 15th versus 17th this week, so maybe it'll be fierce in its own weird and wonderful way tomorrow night, potentially. Maybe it's a bit uglier than usual, but how has it felt for you guys? You obviously had a bit of a rocky start to 2025 with only getting your first win against Freo the other week, which is a great win. How are you feeling now after bagging that win? Has your expectation levels changed? Like, what are you feeling like going into this week with the season you've had so far?
Yeah, look, I think the flag's back on for Melbourne after that win now.
Definitely,
we often joke about that. It's a bit of a catchphrase on the podcast, just saying whether we feel flaggy or not. We've felt the furthest thing away from flaggy in the past month before we got in. I've been quite frank. I think we need change at the helm. I don't think having a win last week changes anything for me. It'll be interesting to see if Melbourne go on with it, but the reality is Melbourne have won 2 games in the past 12. That's the form line that we carry. Feeling much more upbeat. To be honest, the overriding sense of emotion at the moment is just relief. Simply put, the relief of getting a victory after a pretty problematic month of footy. Like, we lost 2 games by 10 goals, and we lost the other 2 games to Geelong and Essendon by 39 points apiece. So it was pretty grim times, particularly given that we put up such a good fight in our opening round against a premiership fancy in GWS, and probably should have won that game. So it's been a strange drop-off since that point, because we thought we saw a lot of good DNA coming out of that game. We thought we were onto something, and maybe this is a bounce-back year for Melbourne. So relief is the first thing, and then secondly, I don't know, it'll mean absolutely nothing if Melbourne can't go on with it for at least a few weeks now.
And you're right, that GWS game, I think that convinced a lot of people that you were on the right track, even from outside of Melbourne supporters' perspective. So, yeah, it has been a bit of a weird one for you. But last week, it must be said, you did have a pretty big shining light in Cosy Picket, who was just unbelievably good, which, I don't know, does it help? Is he driving up his price tag? Does that help in some way, shape or form for you? But 5 goals, 24 disposals, 5 marks, 3 tackles, 4 clearances. From the outside looking in, that looked like the best game he's played for the club. He was unbelievable, and I'm petrified on how we're going to try and stop him this week.
Oh, he's an incredible footballer. Isaac Smith said it on Triple M on the call that he's the closest thing to Cyril that he's ever seen since Cyril, and I don't disagree with him. I'm extremely biased because I just absolutely love him as a footballer. He's a fan favourite. We all idolise him. I think he's actually the main man now. I know a lot of people have said it's Christian Petrarca or Max Gawn. Clayton Oliver was once the main man as well there for 3 or 4 years, but I actually think it's Cosy Picket. And I think days like we saw against Fremantle, maybe not the 5 and 24, which is a pretty absurd game of footy. I think we'll start to see more high teens, low 20s and a couple of goals become the norm for a Cosy Picket. Of course, he's going to have his down days, but we've been waiting for that level of consistency for a while. And a lot of people have been speaking about how they thought this was going to be his breakout year. And we've seen it in the 3 weeks that he's come back. Even in those 2 losses against Geelong and Essendon, he was one of the shining lights for us. So he's come back, he's fit, he's strong, he's got X factor, he can play in the middle, he can play up forward. He takes the piss, he's just got to make sure he keeps his elbows in. So,
yeah. And like watching him from a Richmond perspective, it validates in my mind my thoughts on our midfield. I've often felt like we're a little bit slow and flat-footed. And I know we got the job done last week, but often for most games, we'll roll with just Taranto, Hopper, Dow, Ross, McIntosh. And I'm like, that's okay when it's working, but when things aren't going our way, opposition teams tend to just waltz it out the middle. We need, I've been crying out for it for ages, we need that explosive player like what Pickett offers. I've been saying put Rowley Jr. in there, Mansell in there, Campbell in there, anyone, but no one's been given a crack. And I think watching Cosy Picket do that, he is the biggest point of difference in your side, compared to your Vineys, Petrarcas and Olivers, who are all great players and do all the grunt work. But, yeah, his speed is just so valuable.
Oh, it's insane. And I think the other thing that is that Viney, Oliver and Petrarca struggle to be is he's clean. His field kicking's exceptional. The way he bursts out of contest, as you're saying, it's rapid. He's almost untackleable, if that's a word, and it's not.
Yep. It is in football terms.
It is, yeah, of course. We'll give it a pass mark for footy terms, but it's a full package. And I just hope we move heaven and earth to try and keep him at this football club. I don't think it's as run and done as people are led to be believed. I still think there's some light at the end of the tunnel with the contract situation. I would love nothing more to see Cosy Picket running around for Melbourne for another 6, 7, 8 years, being a demon for life. It's tough because there is a big pull to go back to WA and be around more family members. And I know that he doesn't like the cold here, and I can understand. Like, once we get into those June and July months, it can be a bit of a miserable place to live, even though we love this city and what comes with it. But yeah, I just hope Brad Green, the footy department and everyone that makes key decisions understands that players like this don't come around often. He's generational, in my opinion, and we need to do every single thing we can do to try and keep him at the football club.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's the kind of player you build a midfield around moving forward. So very special talent indeed. Before we get into the ins and outs, I just want to talk quickly about a couple of the other youngsters you've got, Harvey Langford and Xavier Lindsay, who are obviously from the 2024 draft class, who were kind of in and around the picks we had as well. No one names floated around. How have they settled into the lineup? I've seen Harvey Langford do some really nice things. And he was one, I think, that was in serious contention for us, but we took Smiley instead.
Yeah, we love Harvey Langford and what he gives us. He's playing a wing role at the moment, which isn't necessarily what he'll be in the future, but it's a way of shoehorning him into the team at the moment. He's a big boy. He's got a great left peg on him. He's clean, and we often speak about on our show how many dodgy kickers we've got, and that's often aimed at some of the older boys in our side who just aren't great exponents by foot. So he ticks those boxes. He's not afraid of getting physical and dirty, which is another big reason we brought him to the footy club. We're a big rap for him already. We see a huge future, and I think the beautiful moment that he's already had in his first win was he kicked the sealer last week. So Max Gorn shoveled it out to him at the back of stoppage, and he got his moment. In a game, he got his first win to kick that winning goal at the Punt Road End, where the Demon Army is. The cheer squad must have been amazing for him, and we love him. And then Xavier Lindsay, we've spoken about again his ball use, and I think Melbourne's recruiting team have definitely made a more concerted effort in the past 4 or 5 years to bring in better kickers. He's another example of that. So very poised, very polished. Definitely needs to bulk up a little bit. Physically and one-on-ones, he's getting ragdolled a little bit, and that's to be expected given he's only 18. But we really like the look of him as well. Like I'm over the moon with the 2 players that we chose in that draft.
It seems like the 2024 draft class was full of very talented kickers of the football for quite a number of picks, which has been great for the clubs taking selections. Now, ins and outs, obviously a very interesting one for us, but Samson Ryan out with a foot injury, who I actually kind of thought, despite maybe him not shooting the lights out last week against the Lions, I thought he was almost certainty to play again this week, given how good Max Gorn is. The Noah Bolter missing due to the curfew, which is an extraordinary turn of events, but he would have been very handy to have in the side. But you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. So coming in, we've actually already announced that Campbell Gray is coming in for his debut. So Campbell Gray was someone we picked up in the mid-season draft last year, probably more so as a forward. He was from Essendon originally, but as the years went on, he ended up shifting to the back line, and he's done some really, really good work in the VFL in defence. So I'm expecting him to play in the back line, maybe on Harrison Petty or someone like that. But I think what will be interesting for us is how we then use a ruck relief, whether it's Ben Miller or whether it is Campbell Gray or whether they use a forward. I know that Uze is not keen on using a defender to do that because it messes up our structure. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that. And the other player I think that will come in for us is Ryan Mansell, who's back from suspension. I think he adds a bit of X factor and zip around the forward line, and he could be someone that we may have to use on Cosy Picket in the midfield because the other guys I mentioned just simply can't go with him. So that's probably our ins and outs. Are there any changes on the horizon for you guys for tomorrow night?
Yeah, so Judd McVie will probably come back into the lineup, which is huge for us. I'm going to say the same thing again. He can actually kick. So we just need to get as many of those players back into the team as we can. He's really important. He's one that probably has flown under the radar a lot from a broader footy world perspective. Like, as Melbourne supporters, we rate him incredibly highly. We think he's an absolute jet. We think he's got leadership written all over him later down the track, being a part of that leadership group. And getting him back in at the expense of maybe a Blake Howes, because it looks like Stephen May's the other one that'll come into the lineup. He's the obvious replacement for Daniel Turner, who played behind the ball last week, with Harrison Petty going forward. So we think the only 2 changes as it stands are Turner out because of concussion, May in, and then it's Judd McVie coming in for Blake Howes. And then there's a bit of a watch on Jake Melksham. He got a nasty gash and it got infected, had to go to hospital. Yeah.
That looked horrible.
It was terrible.
I was surprised he come back out, to be honest. But yeah, he's a tough unit.
Yeah, definitely. So he's the other one, and whether that means maybe Harry Sharp getting promoted and playing a full game. He was the sub last week. Maybe I don't think they'll do this. I think Bailey Fritsch needs to spend a little bit of time at VFL level. He got dropped the week before. They could look at bringing Bailey back into the team, and it was funny that we moved the ball the quickest we've ever moved the ball in my lifetime of watching the Dees under Simon Goodwin. And I think on record it was the quickest we've ever moved it.
Really?
I think Bailey Fritsch would have had a field day last week personally, but
yeah.
I think he's got to do his time in the twos, and a lot of that's just built around defensive pressure. So running the other way, putting on tackles, ensuring that you're a part of that defensive press. That's what he needs to work on. And then Jacob Van Rooyen, probably similar story for him. I can't see him coming back in, just knowing that Tom Fullerton, even though he didn't hit the scoreboard, I just felt like he presented well. He made a contest. He brought it to ground, and that's all you can ask. And even Jacob hasn't been doing that in the last few weeks. So I think those two boys who appear to be rusted ons in our 23, I think they need to stay at Casey for a couple more weeks.
It's interesting because I really rate Bailey Fritsch. I've always thought he's been underrated from people outside of Melbourne, and I've always thought that he's touches up a little bit, and I can understand why there might be temptation from Goodwin to try and expose our maybe lack of experience down back, especially with us bringing in a first gamer as well. But Harrison Petty, I think last time we played you guys, we made him look like prime Wayne Carey. He was clunking everything, kicking. I don't know how many he kicked. It must have been at least 5 or 6. But
6.
He seems to find his groove against us. So he's probably one that we've got to watch out for as well.
Yeah, which is really funny because last year, off the top of my head, he played 19 games as a forward and he only kicked 9 goals, and it was a horrible experiment. It didn't work. We got fooled because the year before in 23, he kicks the 6 goals against you. He kicks the 3 goals the week after against North Melbourne down in Tassie, but then he got injured and missed the rest of the season, which hurt because it potentially, may have cost us a flag. We lost Melksham a couple of weeks after against Sydney, and it's a bit of a what if story. But he just sparked back to life as a forward last week, which was the biggest shock of any. I was pretty angry, to be honest, when I heard he was playing forward. So I missed half of the first quarter. I was driving up to the country to where my folks live, and they're on the Triple M coverage. They're talking about Harrison Petty's forward, Disco Turner's back, and I kind of moaned in the car, and my wife was like, "What are you moaning about? The game hasn't even started." And I was like, "Oh, it's because of where this bloke's playing." And she said, "Which one's he?" And I said, "Oh, it's Harrison Petty." And she's like, "Yeah, you complained a lot about him last year when I was watching games on telly, waiting for the arrival of the second child, doing the right thing and staying at home." But Harrison Petty's a curious footballer because he runs around as if he's a 50-year-old when the ball's not in his vicinity. He hobbles around, and then when the ball gets to his area, he just comes to life, and suddenly he's got this turn of speed and he's throwing his weight around and he's super physical. So I can't put my finger on Harrison Petty. He's a very strange footballer. He's had some big games this year, but he's had some absolute stinkers at the same time. So you just never know what you're going to get.
Jeez, if Melbourne supporters can't work him out, how are we meant to plan for him? Jesus, we've got no hope. We have to rely on Boston to take another 10 or 12 intercept marks again like last week if we're any chance in that department.
He's a great player. I love watching him, just side note.
He had a ripper game last week, and I think, unfortunately, this is where we'll miss Bolter's impact on the side with him being out. I think he added a lot more confidence to Miller, a lot more confidence to Vlosten and Broad, and now that has to come back another rung, and he's kind of got to, I want to say babies, it's not really the right word, but he's got to keep his eye out for Campbell Gray now, who's fresh into the scene. So I highly doubt we'll see a similar game from Vlosten this week, unfortunately, which could be to our detriment. But Jake Bowie's the other one that piqued my interest in terms of numbers. He had a crazy amount of metres gained last week, and it seemed like he's driving a bit off your half-back line.
He could be leading our BNF Little Bow Wow, as we like to call him.
Yeah, right, okay.
He has been exceptional. He has not put a foot wrong. He had a collarbone injury that he sustained in opening round last year against Sydney. So he's out for 8 weeks, and then once he got back into the lineup, he just looked like a shadow of that player that we saw in back end of 21, 22, 23. We're big on him. We think he is the key to how we like to work the ball out of D50. He's a bit of a quarterback in a sense, and he showed that last week. He was absolutely brilliant. He had 500 metres gained to half-time, and I think it was 21 disposals at half-time. So he was on track for a ridiculous 40 plus 1,000 metres gained. He waned a little bit, and I think Freo, when I looked back at the replay, put a bit of time into him, trying to cut off any easy kicks and anything that was running through him, because he pretty much dictated that whole first half. He gave us so much drive off D50, and he was so integral, and he was in so many of our scoring chains in the first half. So we love him. We think he's an absolute gun, and we definitely think that he's a player that's flown under the radar. And again, I think the comp will know all about him in weeks and months to come, and I only see an upward trajectory for Jake Bowie. I think he's an absolute jet.
So hopefully, if Uze's done his homework and watched that game, we'll hopefully look after that from the start and try and have a matchup. I'm thinking that Seth Campbell would be an interesting matchup for him, because he's probably the most dangerous small forward for us going the other way. He can impact the scoreboard. He's got the leg speed as well to keep up with him. Morris Rioli Jr. will probably be thereabouts as well in some way, shape or form, but I wouldn't mind seeing Seth Campbell have a crack there. I think that'd actually be a really good contest. He's
a gun, by the way. He's a very good player.
He's right. He's probably having a breakout year that we didn't think he was going to have. You wouldn't say that last year was an obvious lead into how good he was going to be this year. It's been kind of come from nowhere a little bit, which has been nice and surprising.
Yeah, it's been awesome. How are you? Just quickly, how are you feeling about the Tigers? I just wanted to throw a question to you, because I don't think anyone expected you to have 2 wins on the board at this stage of the season. I was watching the game with the old man against the Suns, and part of us at halftime and then early in the third quarter were like, oh, surely the Suns click into gear here and take this away from you. But when you started piling them on towards the end of the third quarter, we thought, oh my God, like Richmond are actually going to win this game. So it must be a pretty cool feeling at the moment, knowing that there isn't much pressure on you and these young boys can just play with freedom.
Yeah, exactly right. Like you said, there was a genuine chance at the start of the year that we were going to go at least 0-12 or 0-15, and that might have turned into 0-23. So to get that first win, I think that's what's been the most pivotal part. And I still don't know how we managed to do that, because Carlton aren't that bad of a side on paper. They just shit the bed in a massive way. But that just released the pressure on the team almost instantaneously, and for supporters too. So my expectation for games is just to try and hopefully see 2 and a bit good quarters of football. And similar to you, I was thinking that they were going to roll us in the second half, because that's kind of been the trend the last month. But that third quarter was the best I've seen us play for quite some time. And it's just comforting to know that when we can execute the plan with how we want to play, it looks good and it works well. And now it's just a matter of waiting until these kids hit 40, 50, 60 games so they can execute it for longer. But to be 2 wins out of the first 6 games, and we joke that we're just 1 game outside the 8, which no one would ever thought we'd be at round 6. So it's interesting. It's unexpected, but it's good to see the players actually. You just want to have a dip for 4 quarters, don't you? You don't really care if you lose as long as they have a crack.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. No, I think it's great. I think Adam Uze's got himself into a really nice, cushy position at the moment. Obviously, you want to see growth throughout the year. You don't want to rest on your laurels and take the 2 wins now and then the season wanes. Like, that's been a big problem for North Melbourne. If you're looking at a club that wants to get themselves on the right path, like they've been promising, particularly last year, but the way they ended last year and the year before, I think says a lot about where they're at. And I think you guys are just tracking in an awesome direction at the moment, so you must be pleased.
Yeah, and what I've liked about Uze in the post-game presses is even after the wins, he's spoken nicely about the win, but he's also been very quick to identify the parts of our game that still weren't good enough and that we've got to work on. So they're not getting just absorbed by winning and just, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's still a lot of work to do. But from your perspective, how important was Uze with you guys when he was assistant coach for Goody?
Well, I think it was the week before someone put the stats out on the win-loss ratio since Uze had left the Dees as a senior assistant, and it was something ridiculous, like 49 wins, a draw and 17 losses versus 50 wins and 59 losses. So
yeah, right. Wow.
So Yeah, I mean, it doesn't tell the full story. Obviously, we've had a lot of personnel changes, some guns of our premiership year that retired. Like Ben Brown was absolutely pivotal to our structure. Michael Hibbard was an unsung hero for us. Angus Brayshaw's the biggest loss. Luke Jackson's been a crazy loss. So, again, it doesn't tell the full picture. But we think he was definitely pivotal. He was the eyes in the coaching box. So
Right.
he was the one sending the messages down to the bench, and then Goody was the man motivator on the bench when the players were coming off and drumming up some morale and some support and giving messages of feedback on the bench. So make of that what you will, but we definitely as supporters think that Ooze had a lot of his fingerprints on that premiership. And at the end of the day, like Adam Ooze is a fan favourite and a childhood hero of mine and many people of my age or in and around my age. Like he's so loved at the club. It's ridiculous. So for him to do well at Richmond, I think is a soft spot for all of us. We honestly just hope he does well because I know he's yours now, but he'll always be one of ours as well.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And it's good because I don't think I've heard a bad word said about him from a Melbourne supporter. So that's comforting to know that it feels like we're the right guy in place. My biggest worry is that Richmond supporters aren't allowing enough time. Like they're jumping the gun really early and getting frustrated with losses. But you've got to just have that level of understanding of where we're actually at in our football cycle. We're not going to win a lot of games this year or next year. So I'm not really going to judge him until like 26, 27 when he's got a bit of experience under his belt and the players have grown with him. But signs are looking good so far.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we'll get stuck into some of the key matchups for the game for tomorrow night that could potentially decide the game. Always like seeing the big boys do battle. Nankervis and Gawn. Maxi Gawn, obviously one of the best ruckmen in the modern era. Nankervis will definitely try his hardest, but it's always a tricky one to break even with him. Just he's so prolific around the ground. How do you see this one playing out? Is there anything Nank can do to try and curb the influence of Gawn? And like I said earlier, the other worry is if we have to have a backup ruck go against him, that could look ugly too.
I think you just got to get as physical as you can with him. So we've seen in the past, Port Adelaide have actually done this to us a number of times, and it's pissed me off because it's felt like some of Max's teammates haven't come in to bat for him. So they've roughed him up and targeted him behind the play. And I don't think we've been physical enough. So I think you've really got to get stuck into him. And I think Nank just needs to make sure Max knows that he's in for a very physical battle. The tricky part with Max is when he goes to kick behind the play like he did in the last quarter and he did at other times during the game last week, is he's almost unplayable. You can't really match him up in that sense. So I think ruck-wise, it's just get physical with him. And then I think the second part to it is I think Richmond just need to be really clever with how they move the ball because if he's going a kick behind the play and they can see him down the line, don't bomb it long. You'll just give it back to us. So,
which I can tell you that years gone by, we have picked him out time and time again, the tallest bloke on the park, and we'll kick it straight on top of his head. It blows my mind.
Yeah, so I think that's one part to it. So I think like ruck-wise, it is what it is. I think you've just got to get in his head and let him know that he's in for a game. I actually think it's more about if he does go kick behind the play, just don't bomb it because Max will fuck it out of the air. Move it around him.
Yeah, he's a great mark of the ball. Taranto against Petrarca. I'm actually looking forward to this one. Both I feel have kind of hit a little bit of form. I know Petrarca had some good clearance numbers last week, as did Taranto. And I'm just keen to see them go head-to-head and just see who comes out on top. Both can kick goals as well, which make them equally as dangerous for each other when it comes to opposing each other at stoppages and things like that.
Yeah, this is a good one. I think Taranto could potentially do a number on track, but track's a really curious one for me because he's been okay. I think physically he's still getting up to the level since the injury. Like I've noticed a few times that maybe Christian Petrarca of old would have gone in like the bull that he is and not worried too much about his body. I think he is protecting his body a little bit since that injury. I think the numbers also show that in terms of clearance and contested possession. We're starting to play him a little bit more forward as well as a result. So it will be really interesting probably to see the way that he lines up. Like, is it a 60-40 mid split, or is it the other way around, playing forward? So I'm not necessarily sure you'll see him in there as a full-time mid. I think expect to see him play a bit of time forward, which we seem to be doing at the moment. But he was good last week. It's just he keeps blazing away, and I've been really critical of him, really critical of Oliver, Viney, the senior guys, not lowering their eyes, not looking laterally for a handball. So I think that's the big thing for Christian this week. Sometimes he's his own worst enemy because there's no problems finding it, but it's just how he executes, which is the problem at the moment.
If he goes forward, I actually think that will cause us more of a headache than if he stays in the midfield. I just think he's very strong and very explosive, that it could trouble Broad and or Vlosten. So that will be interesting from a tactical perspective to see how that one plays out. Miller versus Petty, this could make or break the game for us. Like I said, Noel Bolter, it would have been a great matchup for Petty, but that's not to be this week. And Campbell Gray, I know I mentioned, I know he's coming in, but I don't think we're going to throw Campbell Gray to the Wolves and put him on Petty straight out. I think it will be Miller, who does win his fair share of one-on-ones, but then you only have to look back a couple of weeks ago to the Fremantle game that we had, and Tracy absolutely slayed him. They kicked about 4 or 5 goals on him, and we just didn't make the move to switch it up. So my fear is that if Petty gets off the chain on Miller early, I'm not sure if we've got a suitable backup to try and change things up, unless it's a first gamer.
I don't have much more to add than what I said before. Like, I have no idea what he's going to give us, and he'll play forward. I've no doubt about that, but he's an absolute mystery, this man. So I think a lot will depend on how he starts the game. Maybe Harrison Petty is the quintessential confidence player. He started well against GWS, took some good intercept marks when he was playing in defence, and then he carried it through the rest of the day. He was actually one of our better players, in my opinion. And then last week, he kicked 2 goals in the first quarter, and it really set him up for the rest of the day. He competed well, ends up kicking 4. So, yeah, that's all I've got. Maybe it's just about the way that he starts. If you can curtail him in the first couple of quarters, then, maybe he'll just fall by the wayside in terms of impact. But I just honestly don't know what I'm going to get from week to week.
He will pencil this game in as a big one for himself because he knows he gets a hold of us. He'll be up and about. He'll have a bit of swagger. The chest will be out. It'll be fascinating to see those two go head-to-head. And the final one, this is on the proviso that Mansell selected this week, which I think he will be. But I've got Mansell against Pickett, and I would love to see this happen in the midfield too, because like I said earlier, if Pickett plays midfield time, which is almost certain, and we roll with Taranto, Hopper, Dow, and Ross, I don't think any of them can actually go with Pickett. Not I don't think, I know they can't go with him. If the ball gets over the top, he will be away to the races. And I think Mansell's actually got the hard physicality and that edge that might be able to put Pickett off his game slightly and just might make him, I don't know, not feel as comfortable as he would like. But yeah, there's that. He will be the key to winning or losing for both of our sides, I reckon, Cosy Picket.
I agree. So I'm going to puff my chest out. I reckon he'll kick 5 and have 25 again.
I hope not, but I can see it happening. It's not beyond the realms with the confidence and the form he's in. And yeah, like I said, I don't know if we've got a genuine answer to him.
Yeah, and I think what he'll end up doing is he'll just continue to potentially increase his pay packet with Melbourne, or he'll continue to increase his trade currency with Fremantle. So the first 3 rounders that Brad Green put on the agenda and everyone scoffed at the start of the season might end up becoming at the end of the year just the currency that he demands. Like, I know a lot of people thought it was hogwash, but if he continues to put up performances like that, then it'll look like a fair trade. So, yeah, he'll do one thing or the other. He'll put more on his bottom line with the Dees. If we can find a way to change the weather during May through to August here in Melbourne, we have to tap into the weather gods and find a way to do that. But, or he'll just continue to jack up his currency. So it's a bit of a win-win for us in the end. And no player is bigger than the club, so... Yeah,
because if he's jacking up his price, it means he's shooting the lights out, and you're probably winning more games on the back of it. So it's not the worst thing, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just not going to fall in love with players ever again because Angus Brayshaw was my favourite player So I don't play for the footy club anymore. And I'm burnt by Fernando Torres leaving Liverpool. That's why I'm a big Liverpool fan. I never buy a number anymore because that one killed me. So anyway.
You're right. It's not worth getting attached. So, all right, well, with that said, let's go with a final tip, including margin. You can be as brutal as you need to be. If you think you're going to trounce us by 50, then so be it. What do you think the end result will be tomorrow night?
No, I think you guys are playing good footy. I think you'll play with freedom. I think you'll be in it up until maybe halfway through the third, and then I think Melbourne might start to power away a little bit. So I don't think it'll be a crazy margin. Like, I think it might be Melbourne by 3 or 4 goals. But I think Richmond are playing with an enthusiasm. We need to take them very seriously, like knocking off the Suns, who I think are a serious outfit. Last week was super impressive. So, yeah, no room for complacency, but I would expect Melbourne to get the job done by that margin.
I think it's a game that I definitely expect Melbourne to win. If we can bring our unsociable game like we did against the Suns to you guys from the start, that's probably our best chance. My other concern is I don't know if we can sustain it off a 5-day break with the young kids. They might just be cooked by halftime, like you said. So I kind of feel like it's going to play out like how you described. I think we'll hang tough for a half, and then the Dees might get on a bit of a roll. But for the sake of just being hopeful, let's say the Tigers by 11, but I'm not sure we'll be able to stick it out again for a full 4 quarters. Just hope for another good hit out and a good contest, and we want to see some signs from the young kids again.
Yeah, I like that. And let's just hope for 80+ tomorrow night at the G as well.
Absolutely. So make sure you get down to the G and make sure you're there early for the ceremony as well. It's a wonderful experience. It's moving. It's as simple as that. So I think if you get there, you'll enjoy it. I'm heading down to the VFL tomorrow to watch Richmond and Casey, so that'll be good fun as well. We'll see some big names rolling around there for both teams, which will be quite interesting. But thank you for jumping on today, Adrian. Much appreciated, mate. I know you've got plenty on your plate. All the best for tomorrow night. Hopefully it's a cracking game and we all get through unscathed.
No, I love it, Chris. No, it's been very good, and just echoing your sentiments. Get down there, watch the ceremony. It's one of the most beautiful things in footy. And, hopefully it's a good game, and go Dees.
That's it. Thank you again. We'll see you for the next one, guys. Go Tigers.